activity in front of her. Calling them floats seemed like a disservice. These were moving works of art. This was nothing like parades back in D.C., which comprised mostly local marching bands and politicians waving from convertibles. "Beautiful, ain't it?" someone next to her asked. Josie turned to a black woman wearing the largest green, gold, and purple hoop earrings she'd ever seen. Josie could barely hear her over the cheering and music. She nodded. "First time?" "Yes!" Josie shouted above the noise. "It's amazing!" She couldn't hide the excitement in her voice. Who cared if it branded her as a tourist? She was finally checking a Mardi Gras parade off her list. The woman grabbed her arm and Josie froze. Her entire body tensed. What did they do to first-timers at Mardi Gras parades? As if sensing Josie's unease, the woman loosened her grip and placed a sisterly hand on Josie's shoulder to guide her deeper into the crowd. Josie quickly pulled off her camera and tucked it into her purse. She didn't want it to get bumped as they walked through the dense crowd. "Hey!" the woman hollered at the people in front of them. "It's her first time!" What was even happening? Josie's fear from earlier had been replaced by curiosity. She knew now that this woman wouldn't let anything bad happen to her. "Make some space!" Hoop's lady cried out again. She had an extremely commanding voice. Slowly, the crowd parted as the woman pulled Josie closer to the parade. She didn't stop until they reached the metal barricade that kept people off the street. "Now you can catch better beads!" Hoop's lady's mouth was right next to Josie's ear. The people who'd parted to let them through smiled at Josie. Then they bombarded her with, well, Southern hospitality. "Welcome to New Orleans, sweetheart. Raise your hand up high like this so they know you want some beads." Several people reached up to demonstrate. "As soon as you catch it, put it around your neck so no one tries to rip it out of your hands. Never bend down to pick up beads if you value your hands. People will step on you to catch beads." Josie chuckled and bobbed her head at each person who graciously gave her tips. After reading about crowds and parade pickpockets on travel sites, she'd been super vigilant about people walking up to her. But everyone she'd met so far had been friendly and helpful. Josie pulled out her phone to capture as much of the parade and people as she could. "Here's your chance to catch your first set of beads." Hoop's lady pointed to the next float heading their way, a locomotive with a smoking chimney. The wheels were an illusion made from lights that were programmed to make the train look as if it were traveling on train tracks. Standing on the float were costumed and masked people. Each person had one arm weighed down with giant necklaces, while the opposite hand grabbed and tossed them into the crowd. Josie's body vibrated with anticipation. Here was her chance to take home a special souvenir. She thrust her open hand into the air, grateful that her 5 feet 8 inches gave her an advantage over the people around her. "Atta girl!" Hoop's lady shouted encouragingly. Josie should have asked for her name, but she liked the mystery and spontaneity of it all. Boring, responsible Josie would have walked away and missed a front row spot, not to mention meeting all these kind people. She kept her eyes on a man with a blue mask and engineer's hat. He'd been swinging his beads low, closer to the front. If she leaned to the left just a little at his next toss, she could... Josie closed her fingers into a fist as soon as the cold plastic touched her palm. "I got it! I can't believe I caught..." She turned to Hoop's lady to celebrate, but the woman had disappeared. Maybe she'd moved behind her. Forgetting that the beads were still in her hand, Josie spun around to look for the woman. The heavy beads gained momentum and flew into the air, and right into a man's head. "Oh my God!" Josie gasped. She nearly dropped the beads, but for some reason remembered the advice to hold them tight. "Are you okay?" "Watch it, lady!" the Southeast Asian man hollered, bent over with pain. "Fucking tourists!" She looked at the hand that was holding his temple, then back down to the large pearl-like lavender beads she'd whacked him with in her excitement. The necklace's beads started at around marble size, but graduated all the way to the size of a ping-pong ball. Even if there was no blood, beads this big could have done some major damage. "I'm so sorry. It's my first time at a Mardi Gras parade, and I saw those gorgeous beads. They weren't gaudy like the other ones, and..." Great. Now she was babbling to a stranger whom she'd almost knocked out with some stupid plastic necklace. She took a deep breath to